What's up guys, welcome back to the channel, welcome back to the Decent Garage. In today's video I'm going to be showing you the full process of what I'm doing with the rusty nuts and bolts and hardware from Lieutenant Dan to try and make them almost new. We'll see how it turns out, but I've done a lot of research and I think you guys are going to like the results. So first of all, I showed you guys in another video as I took hardware off of Lieutenant Dan, what I would do is bring it over here and put it in a container with apple cider vinegar, which is basically a very strong acid to try and eat the rust off of it. So I would leave it in this container for anywhere from 2 to 5 days, depending on how much it needed. Then I would bring it over to the sink, rinse it off, and put it right in the tumbler, which I have walnut shell media in here, and I would leave it in the tumbler for 2 to 3 days. So that process worked really well. You can see some hardware right here. I mean, it just takes it down to nice, bare, clean metal. So, a lot of you guys have seen that process that I talked about in another video. Now I'm going to show you the next steps so that I can turn it into brand new black hardware. Alright, so after I've got them de-rusted with the apple cider vinegar and then put through the tumbler for a while, they're nice and clean. Now the next step, right here I've got a Tupperware of super clean degreaser. Here I've got a Tupperware with the Caswell black oxide concentrate diluted 9:1, and then this is just distilled water. And the last step, I've got WD-40. So there's 4 steps here. Now let me show you a trick that I figured out. I had filmed this video already before, and I was really kind of frustrated with the process. It wasn't very efficient. I was getting cross-contamination between each of the containers, but I figured out a really efficient system. So first of all, what we're going to do, we've got our bumperette hardware. What we're going to do is just stick it in the super clean. Okay, and that's okay that I touch that with my hands. If you want to wear gloves at that point to decrease the chance of getting any oils on it, the purpose of this step is to get those oils off. Okay, so I put that in there. I'll stir it around. And then what I'll do is I've got this microfiber towel here, and here's the trick that I figured out. So I went to the dollar store and bought a bunch of these Tupperwares, and you'll notice in these two I've got 2 Tupperwares stacked on top of each other. And what I did in the Tupperware that's inside the other one, I've drilled holes in the lowest point. So when I'm ready to get this hardware out, if I slowly lift this up, you can see and hear that super clean draining out of there. Good, and then dump it there and then just gently push down and it'll fill back up and sink back to the bottom. And then at this point, you don't want to touch them with your bare hands. So what I do is I wrap them up in this microfiber cloth, try and get them somewhat dry, just like that. And then I put them into the next container. So I've got a set of hardware in here already that's been in there for probably 5 or 6 minutes. It looks like it's almost ready to go. I'm going to agitate it just a little bit. We'll give that a couple more minutes and it should be good to go. And I have the same system set up here, so this is kind of a strainer as well. When I'm ready, I just pull it up and let it strain out. So while I was waiting for that, I figured I might as well make this into a strainer system as well. I didn't have it straining here because this one's not quite as important to not touch it with your hand, so I was just grabbing it out. But I think for ease of the process, I'll just make this one a strainer system as well. Okay, so these ones are looking good. Strain that out. Okay. All right, so now we're gonna dump these into our distilled water. And that's pretty quick. It just needs to neutralize it. Okay, and you can see the difference between the black oxide treatment and the original stainless steel. It looks really good. All right, so the last step I do, I dry these off is somewhat good, not completely dry. Just get all the major water droplets off. I'm gonna sink this one back in. Okay. And I grabbed the original bag it was in, put everything in there. And then we have the last step. Now this is another step I was getting somewhat frustrated with the first time I filmed it. We want to get some type of oil on here so that we don't get water penetrating into the metal and creating rust again, because the black oxide does not prevent rust. So what I'm doing is just getting it all in there. And then we're going to spray some WD-40 in there. We'll do just a little more because we've got quite a bit of hardware in here. Just like that. And then I just leave it like that until I'm ready to use the hardware. And when I'm ready to use it, I'll pull it out, probably wipe it off just a little bit and install it. So the first time I filmed this for this step, I was using used motor oil, which is another product people suggested in this process. It worked. I'll show you some footage of how that looks. It looks really good, but it was just a mess to have to dip it in there, clean it off. I was going through tons of paper towels to try and clean it off. The WD-40 is much cleaner and probably just as effective. So that is the step that we're using to refurbish all this hardware. I've got bags and bags of this stuff. In the end, it is a lot of work. It's time consuming, but doing this strainer system is much more efficient than what I was doing earlier with trying to pull each piece out individually with some needle nose pliers. I will probably still end up buying some new hardware in certain circumstances. I also did a set of hardware that I did buy new for the transmission pan, and it was zinc coated hardware. I did the same process, the apple cider vinegar, the tumbler, and then this, and it coated it just fine. It worked really, really well. So the apple cider vinegar stripped that zinc coating off. It took a little bit longer than the rust, but it did end up stripping it off and it coated just fine. So you can do this with new hardware as well. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that video. Again, somewhat of a lengthy, tedious process, but if you're looking to save a little money and you have a lot of hardware you want to refurbish, this is a great way to go. I'll be doing this probably in the future with other hardware I come across as I work on projects. And I'd recommend doing this process as well. So if you haven't yet, please make sure to click that like button below on the video. That helps me out a ton. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments, and we'll see you guys in the next video.